Mr. President, I come to the floor today to recognize a true public servant, an individual who's been by my side since my first year as a senator, someone who will be dearly missed, not only in my office, but by this institution as a whole, as he moves on to his next chapter this week, my Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Advisor, Franz Wuerfmannsdobler. Franz has had a great impact on this institution, on the staff members who served here over the last 2 decades, and on me. His sage advice, his patience, his incredibly calm demeanor, his willingness to mentor and guide others, his respect for this institution, and his knowledge born out of 20 years of experience in the Senate have contributed in countless ways to the meaningful work we've been able to do here for the people of Delaware and our country. Today, I want to recognize and thank Franz for his remarkable, his selfless career. I want to thank him for what he's done for me, for my office, for the people of Delaware, and pay tribute to the legacy he leaves. It's a remarkable legacy. He's been on the front lines of events and policy battles that have quite literally shaped the history of our country over the last 2 decades, from 9/11 to the passage of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, from energy and appropriations efforts to sustained concerns and engagement around bipartisanship. Franz's career in the Senate began in 1998 when he served as a legislative assistant for the late, great Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who was himself a giant of this body. For 8 years, Franz handled issues from energy to environment to climate change and natural resources. It was also in Senator Byrd's office that Franz cut his teeth on the complex appropriations process, learning from the master appropriator himself. Franz's career then took him to the office of former Senator Byron Dorgan of North Dakota, where he was a trusted senior energy policy advisor, and then on to the Senate Energy and Water Appropriations Subcommittee, before finally joining my own office in March of 2011. Franz's list of legislative accomplishments is long and impressive and reflects his deep grasp of policy and the mechanics of politics. He helped to shape elements of the Energy Policy Act of 2005 and the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. He was central to establishing reformed fuel economy standards for our nation's automobiles and played a key role in the Recovery Act, a massive effort that helped pull our nation out of the depths of a recession. Franz is a person of ideas and of vision. His vision for our country has led to policies that have made our nation cleaner, more innovative, and more secure. And likewise, his vision in my Senate office has made our team more efficient, more effective, and more successful. Franz has played a key role in shaping my office from early on, helping to create a team-based structure and the positive culture of our legislative staff. He also introduced me to the valuable concept of having an office built around and relying on expert legislative fellows, including in particular fellows from the American Association for the Advancement of Science, whose incredible expertise and deep knowledge in scientific matters has been invaluable in advancing technology and science policy in my last 8 years. In total, Franz has mentored more than 15 fellows during his time in the Senate, 13 of them AAAS fellows in my own office, and they have attested individually and collectively to the reach and scope and power of his guidance and mentorship to them. Franz is also a master of appropriations, an arcane process that even the most seasoned legislative veterans should admit that they don't completely understand. He brought his wealth of experience to our team, taking the reins of the federal budget and appropriations process and building from the ground up a complex and detailed appropriation system that we use to this day. There is no question Franz's expertise and the time he dedicated to building this meticulous system has made me a more effective member of the Senate Appropriations Committee and has led to countless wins for the state of Delaware, funding for critical transportation improvements, investments in our first responders, and support that has helped establish and enhance the Nimble Manufacturing Institute at the University of Delaware and to fully fund science and R&D projects around the country and in my home state. Beyond Franz's technical expertise, nothing better exemplifies his character than the patience and dedication with which he has taught others about the appropriations process. Each year, Franz hosts Appropriations Boot Camp 101 to teach new staff members the ins and outs of this riveting and complex process. He takes the time to explain it, to get into the weeds, and to answer question after question. Franz has also taken his show on the road to my home state of Delaware, meeting with state and local government and community stakeholders to explain the appropriations process and help secure more funding for our state. He's even developed a legendary method for teaching staff about appropriations by using bags of marbles to explain funding allocations for each appropriations subcommittee. And for the record, the legislative branch gets just one marble. Franz's patience extends far beyond the annual appropriations process. He always maintains his cool and has a striking and calming presence, even in the most trying of circumstances. One of those more trying circumstances occurred at a staff outing just a few years ago. Franz had driven a couple of other members of our team, and on their way home, his car broke down. The group decided to push-start the car, going down a hill to get momentum, while a junior staffer manned the wheel. Unfortunately, the lack of power steering made it impossible to turn the wheel, and after a good strong push, the car rolled right down the hill and into a tree. Franz very calmly said, "Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. It's all going to be fine," even when the front end of his car was unrecognizable. Franz's response to that situation, his cool and calm demeanor, is characteristic of the grace he has imparted upon all of us, even in some of the most tumultuous times here in the Senate. One of the unique things about Franz is that whenever you meet someone who knows him or has worked with him, they talk about the ways in which he's gone out of his own way to help them and mentor them over the years. So many people in the Senate view Franz not just as a friend or a colleague, but as someone who they know has helped them in their careers, someone who has shown them the ropes and invested time in supporting them and helping them succeed. One member of my team described it this way: Franz has an uncanny ability to take the time necessary to help. He enables us to do our jobs and do them well. We get meaningful things done because of the wisdom Franz has imparted. In an environment here in the Senate that is at times fast-paced, Franz takes the time to invest in younger people. He sees potential in staff and imparts knowledge and experience, even when there's more than enough to keep him busy just meeting his own commitments. For example, Franz took it upon himself to create a manual for the new fellows who work in my office every year. The manual, which should be required reading for every new Senate staffer, describes how to write a bill and important things about the process of working in the Senate. He also maintains the Capitol Hill Urban Dictionary, which he shares with new staff and interns to help them decode internal Senate jargon, including oft-used but rarely explained phrases like "on block" or "move the needle." He explains, for example, what to do and asks, "Do you have language on that?" Franz embraces the importance of teaching the next generation of Capitol Hill staff how to do their job well, and I think that is truly his greatest legacy. The remarkable diaspora of younger staff members he's believed in, invested in, helped train, who are now working everywhere, from the Senate to the House to the Department of Defense to running a nonprofit in Kenya. Each year, Franz and his wonderful wife, Lisa, host an annual gathering at their home for a growing community of current and former fellows, literally dozens of colleagues, folks who've shared experiences, who care about policy, who like a good geeky joke, who enjoy helping each other and developing and sustaining each other's careers. That's just the kind of person Franz is. He has impacted so many people, something that was never more evident than at his wedding to Lisa a few years ago, which I was deeply honored to have the chance to officiate. In addition to their friends and family, guests that day included former Senator Dorgan, folks who had mentored Franz early in his career, and dozens of individuals he had mentored himself, people from all walks of life who support and love Franz and Lisa and care about them. It was a testament to the community they've created, both inside and outside this Senate. Franz cares deeply about this institution. He cares about policies, and he cares about people. He is always looking for ways to bridge the partisan divide and make this broken place work better. It hasn't always been easy. Like many of us, Franz has struggled with the slowing pace of legislative progress in the Senate in recent years and its increasingly divisive nature. It says so much about him, about his faith in us and this institution, that he's leaving his Senate career to go work on these very issues, helping lead the Bipartisan Policy Center in advancing bipartisan policy solutions to address the challenges facing our nation and the institution of the Senate. He has made such a mark that he is known throughout this institution by a single name. Few people are known by just one name: Bono, Noah, Cher, Franz. With Franz leaving the Senate, I promise to continue to do my part here, to bridge what divides us where we can and do the important work required of us. That includes passage of the Master Limited Partnership Parity Act, important bipartisan legislation that will level the tax playing field for clean energy that Franz has worked on for Congress after Congress as long as I have been here, work that I intend to finish. Well, I am sad today to see Franz leave my office in the Senate. He will be deeply missed by everyone on my staff and everyone who has benefited from his wisdom, but I'm also excited to see the inspiring things he will accomplish in his next chapter. I want to thank Franz for his dedication, his leadership, his expertise. I want to thank his family for sharing him with us these past 8 years in my office and these 2 decades here in the Senate. He inspires me every day to be a better and more thoughtful, more careful, and more caring legislator. He leaves a deep and positive impact on all of us we won't soon forget. Thank you, Franz. You will be deeply missed. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I yield the floor.